the biggest story remains the killing of the United Healthcare CEO by Luigi Mangione, allegedly, still has to be proven, but it's the reaction. And it's not just like, I think that there's a lot of people in media that want to boil it down to like, oh, people are thirsting over him because the internet's stupid. That is not what it is.
There's some that all the time when a hot guy, again, the Night Stalker, watch the Night Stalker documentary. He had groupies in the 90s. It was just a guy who was killing people. But this sort of thing is much different than that because most people, again, don't just support shooting people in the streets, but also when you're presented, say, hey, feel sorry for this guy who, oh, by the way, he has a job that it sits him atop a pyramid of intense cruelty and death. People are going to have a reaction that way.
They are. And so I think a lot of very wealthy people are afraid right now. We saw that in the immediate aftermath, healthcare executives or hospital and pharmaceutical executives took their information off of websites. There was one healthcare CEO, or health insurance CEO is probably more accurate, that I think petitioned to remove his Wikipedia page, which you can see. So, or at least someone
security spending too.
Yeah, or at least someone connected to him. Doesn't that, if you're supposed to be providing care for people, but you need a security force to protect you from the people that you're supposedly taking care of with your for-profit business, doesn't that say it all? I don't know. Well, Peter Thiel, one of the richest guys in this country, in the world.
Government contractor Peter Thiel got a bunch of money for surveillance. Basically spying on you and selling all the collated information to police departments and other sort of security forces.
Also quite close with J.D. Vance, who is going to be the VP.
Oh, yeah. I mean, J.D. Vance basically his assistant.
And so when you hear Peter Thiel speak, this is probably a pretty good summary of how the right-wing populist, I say with the most sarcasm I can even muster, Republican administration that's incoming with Trump feels about this particular case. And we're gonna make fun of Peter Thiel because he's so bad at speaking and communicating, but he's also very afraid.
And to those who think this shooter is a hero because he did it because he said this healthcare executive was presiding over a healthcare system which kills thousands of Americans by denying them cover, what would you say to them?
You gonna cry?
I don't know what to say. I think I still think you should try to make an argument.
You should.
And I think this is you should, there may be things wrong with our healthcare system.
Oh, wow.
But you have to make an argument, and you have to try to find a way to convince people and change it by that. And this is not going to work. And I don't know. Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, all sorts of things one could say about it, but
try one.
I don't think, and I think the motives feel. I don't want to go into all the particulars.
Make an argument.
I don't think there's anything heroic about him.
I completely agree. Okay.
Oh gosh. Honestly, that point almost moved me to tears by how eloquently he made his argument. You've just got to make an argument.
It's the most beautiful thing in the world for the guys that are like, hey, this all runs on us expressing ourselves in the realm of ideas. I listen to that guy, and I definitely think, oh yeah, he's here because of the way he's able to form arguments and elaborate them to people. No, he's there because he has lots of money. He's there because he's actually going to make a lot of money off of this, selling surveillance information to government to make sure here at Peter Thiel Industries Palantir, we're going to sell you a way to make sure you can keep an eye on all the people that your company is fucking over that might turn to violence. Like, this is money to this guy. But again, like you said, like the populism thing is just because they were out of power and in opposition, and anyone who is crediting it is a mark or a crypto fascist.
That's exactly right. He is going to make a lot of money in this administration because
$11.2 billion he has right now.
The casino is open. It's open for business. We are in an era where these oligarchs that are going to have a direct line in the Trump administration are going to try to loot the administrative state for parts. And as you mentioned, Thiel already has a lot of government contracts for security. He's going to get more, likely more security services that will benefit him with these healthcare CEOs probably enlisting him, but also along the border. His surveillance technology helps crack down on people trying to cross the border and seeking asylum. He's going to get more and more of those contracts to build the wall, but not a literal wall, by the way. Donald Trump came onto the political scene in 2016 promising that he would build a wall and Mexico would pay for it. No, now it's just going to be surveillance wall brought to you by Peter Thiel, getting your taxpayer money through government contracts to make sure that, I don't know, migrants trying to cross the Rio Grande don't get over to the border and essentially drown in those buoys that Greg Abbott put in the Rio Grande to make sure that it cut up a woman who was pregnant.
It's a difficult time for Peter Thiel and all of Peter Thiel's sort of media assets because they want to be celebrating as a folk hero Daniel Penny for choking a guy to death on the subway. But instead, there's the actual folk hero energy is getting pulled away on the exact same week that happened. And they're struggling now. They're struggling to figure out how to address this because it's all artificial. The idea that there's any sort of real popular energy on there is just it's much more helpful when you can project it onto a big rich guy like Donald Trump. Well, these freaks that are actually behind the scenes.
Exactly. And did you see that JD Vance is bringing Daniel Penny as his special guest to the Army football game?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and they're desperate to make their version
can I make a point about that?
Yes.
I don't think that there's anything heroic about I can't say Daniel Penny.
I'm so moved by what you just said. JD Vance is bringing him to the Army-Navy game. I think it's the Army-Navy game, some football game for some stunt, because they're trying to will this guy who killed one of the poorest people in our society, an unhoused person, a homeless person who was having such difficulty. He choked him out for over 5 minutes on a subway car in broad daylight and then got away with it. That's for right-wing populism and the branding they're trying to get behind, even though we all know how ridiculous it is. That's their version of what a populist hero is. A dead-eyed white guy with a military background who goes onto the subway and protects all of the other respectable people from the hordes of poors that may make them a little bit uncomfortable for a second. The populist hero for them isn't the guy who did kill a healthcare CEO who was indirectly responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of other people in the so-called populist movement, or whatever, both the right and the left. The point is just like it's a false premise. Their version of populism is that these vigilantes and right-wing freaks that get to do whatever they want and crush the people that are below them, as opposed to when violence is directed towards the powerful, then these so-called politicians of the people, the populists, they shrink into a little corner and then they go, it's all an aesthetic. And if you fell for it, you're a mark.
And the point isn't who's a hero in this. The point is that in both of these stories, the number one villain, if you had to pick one person, is the healthcare CEO.
Yeah. Exactly.
The one going to the deepest pit of hell is the healthcare CEO.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.